So I did not necessarily want to make this video because I've been on like a Ufotable streak with my content if you look at my channel. I still had to make this though because let's just say the last episode surprised me. I'd say visually it's the third best episode behind the climactic episode of Yukokuhen and obviously episode 19 from season 1. And that is also why it's fascinating because for this episode you don't have Toshiyuki Shirai's masterful action direction and you don't have Nozomu Abe's impactful finale segment. Just goes to show that Ufotable has enough aces and they don't have to entirely depend on Toshiyuki Shirai's action direction or Nozomu Abe's action animation. And that's what makes this episode truly unique because it feels like Ufotable at their best again. And there only have been 2 other instances in this entire season like that. The rest of the episodes, there were high points, but it never felt like Ufotable to me. Episode 5 had good animation, but the Ufotable magic was missing. Same with the penultimate episode. People were praising it as the best episode of the season. It looked good, as should be obvious when an episode is packed with a stacked list of high quality animators, but I just didn't get the feel of the action, which is very hard to describe. And that all changes with this episode. It finally feels like Ufotable is back on track, doing stuff that they're good at. This episode truly feels like a Ufotable episode in the sense of the dynamic CGI backgrounds and how they mix with the foreground elements, the extraordinary level of polish in each and every drawing, and the absolute top of the line peak of compositing that can accompany 2D animation. This might not just be the best compositing I've seen done by Ufotable ever, but it's now just tied with Violet Evergarden as some of the best compositing that I've seen in animation as a whole. And of course, as most Ufotable projects do, the music is just so perfect. And yes, the instrumental portion of Nezuko no Ota, which plays during Masayuki Kunihiro's segment, is just my favorite portion of any Goshina soundtrack till date. So the action segments in this episode is pretty damn good. Of course, that's a fight sequence. It is shit. This entire season has been filled with absolutely terrible quality fight scenes because it's a stretch to even call these fight scenes. But that just comes down to the source material being kind of shitty. So the first sequence I'm going to talk about is this one, animated by Masato Nagamori. This is what I'm talking about. It feels like a Ufotable project. The way Tanjiro, a 2D character, interacts with the flawlessly modeled 3D background is something you generally don't get to see in anime, at least at this high level of quality. So this is even better than what Ufotable has done in the past because Tanjiro is actively interacting with the 3D background. Like that's a 3D log right there that probably Genya just threw and it's on the ground right now. And Tanjiro waltz over it. So you don't see the way Tanjiro's interacting with the tree right there because it would feel floaty. So it's just done in like 2 frames, the vaulting. But it is just so incredibly seamless, and he runs behind trees, around trees, all while the perspective shifts to such complicated angles. Like, look at this angle. That is so complicated. So with all the incredible perspective shifts, the background always keeps up accordingly, and that's been done in the past with Ufotable projects. But what truly makes this scene the best out of all of them is because of the active interaction that Tanjiro does with the background. The fact that he's vaulting over a CGI model or he's going around the CGI model. If you look at a pretty similar sequence to this, it's Go Kimura's iconic sequence animated in episode 19. But the CGI background, the forest, just exists to move the scene. It feels like there's a specific path for these characters to move in through the forest, such that they don't have to actively interact with the CGI models. The CGI models just exist for the purpose of background animation. But in scenes like this, where Muichiro just kicks off this tree, and it truly feels like he's kicking off the tree when him and the tree belong in 2 completely different planes of existences. I'm willing to bet this entire thing was modeled in CGI first, including Tanjiro's character model. I'm sure Tanjiro's character model here actually started off as a rough 3D layout, similar to this scene from Nozomu Abe. You can see that Saber here is just a rough 3D layout. This makes it much easier for the animators to get the perspective right. Animation is already an incredibly difficult process, and one of the most difficult processes within animation is getting the perspectives right, especially when you're shifting it alongside a 3D background. So I'm pretty damn sure that the way this was done is by first modeling the background and Tanjiro being a rough 3D layout as well, and then Masato Nagamori animated on top of the layout, converting the blocky, janky CGI layout into actual true 2D animation. using the principles of hand-drawn animation. The reason I'm wording that in that very specific way is because I don't want people to think it's just animators drawing on top of CGI. All the CGI does in this case is map the layout for the animator, makes the animator's job easier to just understand the perspective in which this flat character exists within this imaginary space. And from there, 2D animation can do the rest. There are also other things that are very small and subtle, but make such a huge difference. Like when Tanjiro's kicking the ground and moving forward, you see these leaves and other just dirt particles. And those are all hand-drawn. And just those tiny particles that you would think would be insignificant actually adds to the scene a lot. Just going ahead and watching this in motion, the little particles do really make a huge difference. Now, of course, everything that makes all of this possible is the CGI team in the first place. It's because they got 3D backgrounds that look this good. Hantengu here must be CGI because for every other scene where Hantengu has been animated this way, he has been CGI. And that's really the only way I can assume that this is CGI because I can't tell. It looks very close to 2D animation. Again, this scene is entirely CGI. The background is CG and the foreground character is also CG. Another very impressive cut of animation done by Masato Nagamori. Really good looking fire effects, close up on Tanjiro's eye, and then these inky smears that Nozomu Abe uses a lot. So eye close up and then inky smears. This scene is most likely inspired by Nozomu Abe's animation. Everything goes to slow motion here. Very good storyboards here, the way it snaps back to regular speed. And then Tanjiro does a flippy flip. Very few number of drawings with the flippy flip, but the timing is just very good. I also love how he lands and then carries his body forth. A lot of weight in that animation. Next scene I'm going to talk about is Tanjiro using Thunderclap and Flash, or well, a variation of it. Really good doga work here. And that is another thing Ufotable excels at. If I'm not mistaken, Ufotable had one of the Demon Slayer episodes, I don't know which one, but one of them were animated entirely in-house. And I'm not talking about key animation. I'm talking about doga being done in-house as well, which is just completely unknown for the animation industry, where usually doga is completely outsourced before that second key animation is also outsourced, and even the key animation is done by freelance animators or is outsourced to other studios. This rotation shot is pretty much one-to-one the Zenitsu scene. It's not like they reuse Nozomu Abe's animation or even reuse their layouts like Haikyuu does. This is just completely reanimated, I would assume, because even the perspectives are slightly different. Nozomu Abe's perspectives are even more exaggerated. But everything else, since this animation is not being carried by Nozomu Abe, I would assume the doga work just has to be that much superior because they don't have Nozomu Abe's incredible key animation to base their doga work after. So yeah, doga artists need more appreciation. Your favorite animated scene would look choppy as shit without doga artists working on them. Love the animated humor here. These faces are just really nice. The yellow colored breath, which you would think is electricity then turning into fire, really cool. It makes sense for Tanjiro to be able to use all these techniques pretty efficiently because, as they said, I'm pretty sure that fire breathing or flame breathing, which one is it? Sun breathing? Sun breathing is the first breathing technique. From that came water, fire, and thunder breathing. Of course, not nearly as much effects animation on screen as Abe would put, but this is not animated by Abe, so it's obvious why that wouldn't be the case. This entire segment is animated by Kazuhiro Miwa, and if you didn't tell me that it was animated by Kazuhiro Miwa, I wouldn't know, because it kind of is missing Kazuhiro Miwa's flair. And Miwa, the way Ufotable is utilizing him, is not as a highlight animator, but more like a filler animator to just fill in the blanks with good animation. This is a 1 minute 40 second plus clip. So what was required for him in this specific scene is just good artwork done over a pretty big span. And Miwa can do that because he's an absolute workhorse. Like if you're talking about animators who can just do a ridiculous quantity of work that is also equally high quality, then Kazuhiro Miwa is up there with like the top 5. I would say the top 5 are Kenichiro Aoki, Hironori Tanaka, Toshiki Sato, Kazuhiro Miwa, and Sungo Park, obviously. So even amidst him being busy with Undead Unluck, where I'm sure he's the highlight animator and you're gonna see his true potential as an animator, he's still animating these minor segments for Demon Slayer. What absolutely does look like Miwa's style though, is this final explosion right here. The explosion timing is just super satisfying. Does it feel like a wasted potential? Kinda. Yeah, because Miwa is an incredible animator, and if you really want to see what he's truly capable of, I have made an animator spotlight dedicated on Kazuhiro Miwa, so you can always check that out. Next scene I want to talk about is this whole character acting segment scene, presumably animated by Mitsuru Obunai. And what's interesting here is that Mitsuru Obunai taking more of a character acting animator role because he's one of the star action animators of Ufotable's in-house talent. And for this season, what he's mostly done is character acting animation, which another thing I have to point out is this, in this specific episode, the characters, they rarely stop moving. This has the most amount of character acting of any Ufotable episode ever, and I'm even taking into consideration Mugen Train. Even Mugen Train has a lesser character acting than this one episode. And of that really high quality character acting, the best is still done by Mitsuru Obunai. And this scene, while good, pales in comparison to the other scene that he also animated in this episode, which is the Muzan scene. I'll get to that. But yes, very expressive, really nice drawings. Just solid as animation. And now we get to the aforementioned Go Kimura, one of the animators that Ufotable absolutely depends on. And Go Kimura here is again absolutely being inspired by Nozomu Abe with this animation. He's not trying to be like a Nozomu Abe clone the way Yukina Kosaka is trying to be a Yutapon clone. These impact frames. Go Kimura really does not use impact frames all that much. The few times that he did use them, it did look gorgeous, but he's used them like thrice over the span of 2 decades worth of animation. So here it really does look like very similar to Nozomu Abe's style as well. The way he's drawing the impact frames, and also the trail of lightning, the way this is drawn. Shows that from a different angle now. Ufotable compositing shining again. Awesome impact frame again. This is just so similar to Nozomu Abe's style of impact frame. For reference, I'll just put a Nozomu Abe impact frame side by side with this. You can see just how similar they are in styles. Yep, that's just great. And this again looks so much more similar to something Abe would do instead of Kimura. Again, reminds me of the Rengoku vs. Akaza scene where Rengoku is lunging forth. Go Kimura is a master of animation poses and anticipation, similar to Masayuki Kunihiro. The difference in their styles being Go Kimura uses a lot fewer smears. The pose here, so godlike. Such a good pose. Then a slight shift forth to this pose, and then just building anticipation. So many frames spent on just slowly shifting the pose, and then just the swing done very fast. Sword makes impact and then just slowly cutting through. And then again, look at this pose again. He's not just using his arms to just slice off the head. He's using his entire upper body, absolutely twisting it, all of the strengths from his shoulders and hips to cut the head off the demon. And that technique is emphasized by the animation so well. Again, the anticipation is done so well. The sword is stuck to the neck for so many frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 frames, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 frames, and the head is clean off. So that really slow build up with a fast release is just very satisfying timing. It's a tried and trusted formula of good animation, and yeah, Kimura does that here. Also shows that from a completely different angle this time. And as you can see here, these are scenes that would be impact frames if Nozomu Abe animated it, but like it's Go Kimura. Go Kimura rarely uses impact frames. And again, everything slows down here, speeds up again. When Tanjiro hits the ground, the blood starts spurting from the demon's neck as well. And now it's time for Yuuichi Terao's compositing to shine, cause man, I don't think I've seen anything better than this as far as compositing goes. Just look at how masterful this looks. This entire area has different shades of pinkish color because of the sunrise. This entire area is still a little bit darker because that's still facing the opposite direction of the sun. And again, yeah, this shit is it's just next level. It's just extraordinary texture work on the CGI background. It's pretty much like lighting in a video game. And that's what they pull off so consistently and so well. Man, the choice of colors is just so perfect. You would never think that you would see this shade of blue on a character's skin, like ever, right? But it works in this very specific context to just exaggerate the difference between nighttime and daytime lighting. Oh man, so much work put into this. Just look at the hair here. How many layers of compositing does that have? The digital fire here also looks very good. It's very much improved from the digital fire that we saw from the previous finale. Yeah, this fire and smoke just feels like it's totally part of this animation. This whole segment has, again, just some cool character acting with Tanjiro trying to make his decision. The compositing on these cracks to make it look like lava is flowing through them, and also her eyeball just looks phenomenal. And Nezuko just kicks him away. Just masterful doga work, man. These drawings are not easy to make, and just doga artists doing this frame by frame, just very, very awesome work. Goes back to flashbacks that's fooling nobody. I saw a Twitter comment say that I'm sure anime onlys really thought that Nezuko died in this scene. These drawings, again, the detail is absolutely incredible. So much line art in this as well. Intricate line art is not something you'd see generally in Demon Slayer's characters, but here it's done very well. Again, a really cool shot with the eye reflection. Really cool flippy flip, and he lands just so softly. cool drawing. I would assume corrected by Akira Matsushima with just how perfect the thickness of the line art is. Always love me some breathing-esque effects. This is just what makes Demon Slayer's art style unique from the get-go. Sick-ass compositing work and very good drawings here. From here, it's Masayuki Kunihiro's animation. I said before, Masayuki Kunihiro is also a master of anticipation and really good pose-to-pose animation. Despite being very pose-dependent, his animation does not take the easy route of having lesser frames. The drawings are still an enormous quantity. The pose-to-pose nature of his animation is just to emphasize better on the build-up and release. So all that build-up, boom, the release. And as I was talking about the smears, you can see the extensive quantity of smears. Masayuki Kunihiro's smears are beautiful, and yeah, this shot. Have I talked about the compositing yet? Have I talked about how good the compositing is? If I have, let's switch to something completely different, which is Masayuki Kunihiro's incredible artwork. Tanjiro has never looked this good. Even with the eye catches drawn by Akira Matsushima himself, Tanjiro has never looked this good. It's just that he never gets an opportunity to do animation in this context, right? He's usually the tight choreography-based animator with just dynamic camera movement, so he can't really put extra emphasis on effects animation or the quality of the drawings themselves. But now he's getting to do this because the other two aces, Nozomu Abe and Shun Yamaoka, who usually animate in this context, they're busy with other projects. So Kunihiro got the opportunity to do this. While he's still at his best when he's doing tight choreography-based animation, that doesn't change the fact that his effects animation and the sheer quality of his drawings, they're extraordinary. And I would really love to see some character design work or animation direction work from him in the future. And look at the continuous shift in lighting when you go frame by frame. Terao has just spent so much time on this. Again, he's animating in a fast, slow kind of fashion, but here he's using true slow motion, which is not something Masayuki Kunihiro uses a lot. Kunihiro usually just slows down the action as a whole, and that's how he builds anticipation. But due to the nature of the scene, he's having to slow down time itself. Just his masterful build-up and release at its full glory here. Zoom and shift, and then again. So gorgeous. These frames are just masterful as well. That's all. That's very similar to a Canada Light Flare. Man, that's just so good. I really feel like Han Tengu's character here is wasted potential. There really is something that could have been very special here. Something like either a split personality or just an evil person continuously playing the victim card. Could have been very cool, but it just wasn't explored at all. Again, back to Kunihiro artwork. It's just so unique. Kunihiro is one of the people that you can absolutely tell that's him animating just from the artwork. Again, slow build up. Then bang! The sword just comes out of nowhere, actually. You don't even see the sword until it's already hitting Han Tengu on his neck. And these has some of the best effects that Kunihiro's ever put onto screen. And here you see true Kunihiro timing. Just fast-paced action through and through. They're still slowing down and holding poses for anticipation and just building up so that the release is more satisfying. But that does not slow down the pace of the action itself. You can see just how fast the fire is flowing on the blade itself, and that never slows down. As for the effects quality, it's just truly unique effects animation. I'd say these effects animation are just up there with the same quality as Abe's, honestly. Here again, he slows down time itself, because in a scene like this, you need that, right? Once the attack is done, you need to show that. And yeah, you can appreciate his effects at full glory here. Completely different from Abe's style. Abe's effects animation usually have outlines, so every single effect particle is treated as its own entity. And the main reason he does that is to separate the effect layers. Because he's drawing so many effects layers, it would be pretty much impossible to keep track of all the layers if they don't have their own outlines and they're not specially visible. Kunihiro has a different approach to effects animation. You can see that there are no outlines and his effects are just pretty much melting and mixing together, which is the more traditional kind of effects animation, but of course with Kunihiro's animation style making it completely unique. But the compositing here is again that golden color going along the portion where his head is burning off. That is so good. And here again, you can just appreciate the difference in Kunihiro's and Abe's style. Look at just how fast the fire is moving on Tanjiro's sword. He does not slow down time there. He does not slow down the pacing on that fire animation at all, which is something that Abe would definitely have done in the situation. He would have definitely used slow motion on that fire effects. The demon, on the other hand, the melting off with the smoke and fire is entirely digital. And yeah, again, godlike with the CGI background here. It reminds me of Makia's CGI backgrounds. This is a really good perspective shot, something I would have expected Coach Yukichi Rai to do actually. He loves shots like these. Yeah, that grass that is just Kyoani grass. Again, I'm going to keep saying it, this is exceptional Doga work. slow rotation around a character. That's a full 180. And then another 180 to show Nezuke's face. It's pretty much a 360. Again, just the warmth of this compositing. It's almost making me want to cry. The season as a whole, none of the emotional beats hit me. I didn't feel anything. Did not feel hype, did not feel sadness, nothing while watching the season. But Yuuichi Terao can summon my tears just because of how good he is at compositing. We finally get to the portion of this episode that actually is a fight scene. It's mediocre. I mean, nothing special at all. I don't like the cuts at all. Like this cut to this cut would have been cool if it was a rotation instead of an actual cut. And then a zoom in to then just show Mitsuri's entire body from the bottom up panning. It's whatever. And yeah, I absolutely love the way this demon just dies off. It's just the perfect fitting end of this demon. The most fitting end for the embodiment of a plot device that you could imagine. His expression barely changes when he's just melting off. He's like, oh shit, I'm dead. And I'm honestly glad it played out that way. It's almost as if Ufotable staff is self-aware with how shitty that character is. These effects though, that's really cool. Nice mix of digital and 2D effects. It could be entirely digital because these wood particles, they're all 3D, even in the background. Like after Mitsuri, you see wood particles here, also 3D. And the smoke is also 3D. Very impressive in terms of just 3D animation. And now we get to the aforementioned Mitsuru Obunai character acting scene. First of all, starting off with a very strong drawing. Then Muzan takes off his mother's head. Let's analyze the beheading. So first, you see the head going off. The blood here is not coming from the neck. It's just coming from the head being crushed. After that, after the head just goes off screen, you then see blood spurting out from the neck, I'm assuming. And then that goes away. And then the final stage. Final stage is a little bit of blood particles that spurts out of the neck itself. So 3 stages. First the head, then the blood, and then just a little bit of particle animation. And then just a spray of an extensive quantity of blood animation. And fantastic morphing animation here. That is just really disgusting in the nicest way possible. Obunai's style has always been a bit more timing dependent and not realism focused. Like with the way the maid is moving her head, like sort of like static. It's not realistic. Also love how the veins just pulsate and appear throughout his body. And the way the clothes morph around him. Where are the clothes? The way the clothes appear around him. Also really sick. Kind of a weird shot here. But I mean, I guess they had to find a way to censor it because what he does to this maid is kind of fucking brutal, right? I think he rips out the entire torso off because the arms, they detach and fall off. The tea and milk separately falling. Just gorgeous. Of course, the best bit of his animation is here. Yeah, that's just so good. And the way the bodies interact with Muzan as well. The way the mother's legs, they are pulled along with Muzan, but then he just walks over it. Just the perfect amount of interaction with those characters. Love it. So well done. And some more really nice character acting here. Love the smears. I'm sure all of you did not even look at the smears and just continuously looking at the boob window. I do not blame you. Final scene I'm going to talk about is this because it's just so unlike Ufotable. Ufotable is known for their great crowd CGI. They're not known for their amazing crowd animation. And crowd animation is always appreciated. It's such a difficult thing to do. Like this one shot must have been just insanely difficult to pull off. All of these background characters just moving independently. This is just phenomenal work. And just from a technical standpoint and difficulty standpoint, this was probably the hardest scene to do in this entire episode. And it's definitely a scene that will be underappreciated by the fans. Chainsaw Man is another example that gave us absolutely gorgeous crowd shots without using CGI at all. And another example would be like a Red Line, which had the best crowd shots. But I mean, that's a movie that had a 7 years production schedule. And it's also literally the best animated thing ever made ever. But this is something that it's a first time for Ufotable. It's not even like they're reusing motions. They're all completely independently animated. Your focus would probably be shifting on this tiny little kid coming forth and just bowing. Just extremely impressive work. And yeah, that's about it. The episode ends with the credits. You see some awesome Akira Matsushima illustrations. Also love the emphasis on the Zettai Ryoiki here with the thigh socks. You can see that they're just tight enough that her thighs are kind of spilling out. Thank you so much, Akira Matsushima, for using your immense talent for the right scenes. Out of all the drawings though, this Genya one might be the best one because goddamn the shading. First of all, the perspective itself is really cool. It's just exceptional shading work. It's like traditional animation drawings, but for the black areas, it feels like it's charcoal or even like calligraphy. It honestly looks more like calligraphy now that I think about it. And it would also absolutely make sense in the context of Demon Slayer and the world, the calligraphy like artwork. Of course, the reason the character designs don't look like this in the anime itself is because this would be impossible to do consistently. These drawings in itself are extremely difficult to do. I'm sure Akira Matsushima can probably just animate traditionally, and it would take lesser time than it did for him to just draw this one drawing. And with the skies, I still haven't figured out how exactly they're doing these skies, because it looks real, right? It doesn't look animated, and I don't know how to feel about it because I love background artwork of skies. But now it's like, you're gonna try to be realistic anyway. Why not just use the real thing? Ending off with this very nice drawing of Nezuko. Yeah, production-wise, that was the best episode of this entire season. Continuous high-quality movement combined with very dynamic storyboards, combined with just the absolute best compositing that you can get in the medium. So all that's really doing is getting me hyped up even more for the Mahoya movie, because that's gonna have all of this. So yeah, that movie is gonna be up there with the Fate Heaven's Feel movies. Quite possibly might even dethrone them. And yeah, that's about it. I'm officially done with Ufotable related stuff for a while now. I'm gonna try with more unique projects. So yeah, that's about it. If you found this video enjoyable, leave a like. If you did not like a single thing in this video, leave a dislike. Comment down anything, subscribe and share, spread the content. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for the views.